Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. And afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the program. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm pretty excited to talk to you. The program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? And how did you know that this was the way to go? So tell us what you do for a living, Doug.
I am a lawyer turned peacemaker. And what I do is help people deal with the messiness in their lives.
Yeah.
So it could be fighting and arguing and conflict and difficult conversations in all different arenas. I worked in places as dark as maximum security prisons, training murderers to be peacemakers, and at the Congressional Budget Office, training senior analysts how to de-escalate members of Congress. So I help people deal with the messiness in their lives as a mediator and peacemaker. And I teach people how to avoid the messiness by using some very specific, deep listening skills. And when you learn these skills, you will stop fights and arguments in your life forever. You'll never have a fight or argument ever again in your life.
That's pretty incredible. And I've been talking to people from all over the world, and for the last about 10 years or so, it's amusing. I'd like to use that word. It's rather amusing to see that no matter where you are, where you're from, what you do, if you if you shut up a little bit and listen more, you would have way less problems than in general. I think it's an Asian saying, but I'm not sure. You have 2 ears and one mouth, so maybe you should listen twice and more than talk. And it's rather amazing to see that it doesn't matter where you are. I think it's how we are as humans. It just
Well, here's the thing, Denny. We are never taught how to listen.
Yeah.
We are never taught how to listen. And when I teach people how to listen, I tell them the first thing you have to do is ignore the words. Do not listen to the words. Listen to the emotions. And when you learn how to listen to the emotions, everything changes. I mean, everything completely changes.
That's a pretty good advice. I a long time ago, about 15 years ago, I worked as a bartender, and my biggest issue with I love my job, but you know how things are when you go to a bar, you had a bad day, and you're basically using the bartender as a therapist, and that kind of was a lot to me. And I went to the senior bartender. I said, "Listen, I'm not sure I can do this. I don't think it's a lot to take all of those problems and to listen to them." So they taught me a technique when you are supposed to listen, but not really listen, as you said, just observe the emotions, but not the words. Count your teeth with your tongue. You know they're supposed to be 32, but you can never really get the right count. So you look like you're listening, and you look really interested, but you're not really paying much attention. Now, of course, I am not saying that this should be done, because, of course, there are people, especially in your field, there are people with real problems and something that should be really observed and notified. But when you're in that situation where you shouldn't really pay attention, that was very good advice you gave.
Put your tongue on the back of your teeth.
Yeah, and just try to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you know it looks like you're listening, but you aren't really. The second question is, how did you get there? So were you like walking on the street one day and you were like, let me be a lawyer that fights for this one? Or did something else happen?
It was quite a long journey. So I grew up in Southern California in the United States, in a family of some affluence, but I was born with many, many disabilities. I was born partially blind, partially deaf, club feet, couldn't walk until I was 3 years old, left-handed, bad teeth. I was a mess.
Pretty fine.
It took me many years to overcome these disabilities, but I was gifted with a good mind. And I ended up going to Dartmouth College for my undergraduate degree. And then after Dartmouth, came back to California and entered law school and studied law. Did well in law school. After law school, I moved to Central California, where I live now, and I was a law clerk for an appellate judge for a year. And then after that, entered private practice with a law firm as a young associate. And I joined the firm in September of 1978 and tried my first civil jury trial in late October of 1978, which is kind of unheard of. And I became a civil trial lawyer, trying very complex commercial business real estate cases in both state and federal court in California and actually around the nation. In the mid 80s, I picked up the martial arts. And by the time I was 40, I was awarded my second degree black belt in a Northern Chinese Kung Fu style. And after my teacher awarded me the black belt, he told me to go study Tai Chi, which is the oldest of all martial arts. So I studied Tai Chi as a martial art. Tai Chi has two interesting paradoxes. The first is the softer you are, the stronger you are. And the second paradox is the more vulnerable you are, the more powerful you are.
Can you clarify on this? Because I understand the words, but I'm not sure I understand.
I didn't understand it either.
Yeah.
Soft to be strong, vulnerable to be powerful. And the reason for that is in Tai Chi, you are using energy, subtle energy. And imagine a garden hose.
Okay.
A garden hose in the winter that's frozen, it's stiff and hard, will not carry as much water as a garden hose in the summer when it's hot out and the garden hose is really relaxed and flexible.
Yeah.
It'll carry twice as much water. So when you are soft and vulnerable in Tai Chi, you can carry much more energy and you can use much more energy. And basically, the concept of Tai Chi is to take the opponent's energy and redirect it back on to the opponent without using any of your own energy. But in order to accept the flow of the energy from your opponent, you have to be soft and vulnerable. You have to absorb the energy and then you project the energy back, just like that.
I understand. I studied Yang Chun for a couple of months, nothing serious, or Wing Chun, different people pronounce it in a different way. It sounds similar to that. And I think this is why you said it's the oldest, the most ancient martial arts, because this concept is been here for a while. Yeah.
Right. It's been around for thousands of years. Well, this paradox, at first I didn't understand it, just like you didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But eventually it seeped into my soul until one time in the mid 1990s, I was trying a lawsuit. I was in the courtroom and I was cross-examining somebody, and the thought came to me, what the heck am I doing in here? And after that case, that trial, I had a planned vacation and I went on a whitewater river trip with a bunch of friends up in Idaho. And I spent 10 days in my raft all by myself, thinking about how many people I'd really served as a trial lawyer. And I could only count 5 people that I thought I had really, truly served as a lawyer. And I just decided, I don't want to go another 20 or 30 years and only serve 15 people. That's not what I'm here for. So I said, I don't think I'm going to be a trial lawyer much longer. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that trying cases just wasn't going to be my thing. So it turns out that I came back to California after that trip and was driving down out of the mountains to my office, listening to our local public radio station, when I heard a public service announcement for a new master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies being offered at Fresno Pacific University, a private local Mennonite university. And it caught my attention. And ultimately, I signed up and earned my master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies over a 3-year period. It completely changed my life. And I had a lot of discussions with my law partners about the direction I wanted to go with my law practice. And some of them liked it, most of them didn't. I was the second largest money earner in the firm. And I finally had enough, and I gave 1 week's notice and walked out, leaving $10 million on the table in late October of 2000. And on November 1st, 2000, opened up my peacemaking and mediation practice. And that's how I transitioned from being a trial lawyer to a peacemaker. Then in 2005, I had an epiphany and discovered this listening technique that I've talked about, where you listen to emotions rather than words. That led to, in 2010, co-founding the Prison of Peace Project with my dear friend and colleague, Laurel Coffer. And in the Prison of Peace Project, we started in the largest, most violent women's prison in the world, training 15 women how to be peacemakers and mediators to stop prison violence. And today we are active in 15 California prisons, a prison in Connecticut, 15 prisons in Greece, a prison in northern Italy, and we got startups in Nairobi, Kenya, and also in Denmark.
That's a pretty remarkable growth, considering the fact that you just mentioned something that occurred 17, 18 years ago.
That's right. And we will be expanding. And then, during the pandemic, we filmed our curriculum over a 3-month period in 2020. And now we have our curriculum on Blu-ray discs. We'll be able to offer our Prison of Peace curriculum to any prison anywhere in the world, because we can subtitle everything into any language. So we expect Prison of Peace to grow pretty explosively over the next 5 years.
That's absolutely remarkable.
So that's why I say I've worked in maximum security prisons, training murderers to be peacemakers, and I've been called to train people in the highest echelons of the U.S. federal government to train them how to de-escalate members of Congress and staff. And I've written 4 books, and I teach workshops and I coach people individually, as well as step in when people have messiness they need help with. I step in and help them work it all out.
You really have to be very, very special and basically to know what you're doing in order to do something. So I knew I was going to be very happy to have this interview.
Yes, you have to develop, to do the work that I do when you're stepping into conflict. You need to have a pretty big toolbox of tools that you can use when people are really upset. They're so upset they'd rather shoot each other with AK-47s than sit down and talk. And you have to have a set of tools that helps people calm down. And then once they're calmed down, I lead them through a process that allows them to make a decision about what they want to do with the conflict, remaining calm, not getting upset. Of course, many times in the process, they'll get re-escalated, they'll get agitated, and I've got to calm them down again. And then we turn back to the problem-solving process and work through it.
I love when you said, and of this, I hear this often. Actually, it happens to me as well from time to time. That specific part when you said you went with a couple of friends somewhere, and at some point you've been on your own, alone. Personally, and not only for me, because I've noticed this to other people as well. Most of the best ideas that I've ever had was in a moment of silence and loneliness isn't the correct word. When I was alone, because I wasn't lonely, but I was, because this is the moment when you actually are able to reflect on you. In many ways, I am actually thankful for the COVID-19 pandemic, because yes, not everything was well, but people, and a lot of people, and I'm seeing it all over Europe, I'm sure it's the same in the US, people had this much needed time from this dynamic and often crazy day-to-day life, just stop down and listen and check themselves, which is incredibly important.
That's right.
I was able to find a lot of things about myself, most of them bad, that had to be removed. Well, yeah, I mean, you gotta be honest about this. Well, and I was grateful that I had the opportunity to see this and to remove it.
A lot of things, I mean, part of the reason here in the United States, there's been what's known as the Great Resignation, where during and after the pandemic, many people quit their jobs. And I think it's because of exactly that. They got a taste of what it's like to be home, to have a better work-life balance. They learned that we don't have to be physically present with each other. We can do Zoom calls. I mean, think about this. You're in Central Europe and I'm in California. We're like 9,000, probably 5,000 miles apart. And yet we're able to have this conversation.
10 hours difference.
That before the pandemic, nobody would have ever thought of.
Actually, the whole concept of this podcast that I made was made during the pandemic.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. And I know that the pandemic completely changed It forced us in Prison of Peace to move to a different way of delivering our program because we couldn't do it during the pandemic. And in my professional practice, my practice is almost entirely now remote on Zoom. I will do in-person workshops, but all my coaching, my individual coaching, is all done via Zoom.
Yeah.
And so I can touch anybody in the world that wants to learn how to stop fights and arguments in their lives forever, how to build instant loyalty and trust, how to build instant intimacy, how to connect with people at a really deep level. I can teach them, and I can teach them over Zoom.
Absolutely. You kind of covered the third question. The third question is, how did you knew that this was the way for you, the way to go for you? The reason I'm asking this question, as far as I know, is because this is how it goes in Europe, but I'm pretty sure in the US it's similar. People tend to go to colleges and universities because they have this stigma that you have to have a diploma to ensure your life, which is ridiculous. Of course, the parents that are telling this to their children mean well, but that's not really the case anymore, because whether or not you have a diploma or not doesn't mean you will do fine. And often, at least here, they go to colleges, to universities, they graduate something that's obviously not for them, and then they start a job that's clearly not for them. And you cannot be a happy person if you do something that makes you miserable 9 to 10 hours a day, because it doesn't work like that. And later on, you go home and you bring all that mess in your home and things don't end well. And again, I'm not against colleges and universities. I myself have a master's degree. I'm about to start a PhD in September. So I'm not saying it's not a fine thing to have. I'm saying that people have this stigma, and I think it's wrong. And since you already covered that, Pat, how did you find out about it when you were over there and you figured it out on your own? And by the way, I really love how amazing it was, because the moment you saw it and you went back home to California and you just heard it on the radio and you were like, yeah, because you were already ready for this. Because
Right.
if you weren't ready, you might have actually heard that advertisement even before, just not to pay attention on it. So it's marvelous to see how every time something like that happens to us, when we're ready to receive it, it's pretty good.
So I want to take a slightly different perspective on what you said.
Please do.
For a lot of people who think that getting a college education is going like to trade school, to learn a skill or to learn something, and I think that's absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
I think you go to college to learn how to learn, because today information is everywhere, and we don't go to college to learn things. We go to college to be exposed to new ideas in the broadest possible way, so that we can learn how to interpret information and data and utilize it effectively. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the social sciences or hard sciences or the physical sciences, or you're in liberal arts. It doesn't matter what you study, as long as you learn how to become a critical thinker. And that's the power of college. It doesn't mean that when you come out with a degree, an undergraduate degree, that you're prepared to do anything. You're probably going to have to go on to graduate school if you want to get more sophisticated training. But what it does mean, it should mean, is that you come out and you're now able to learn stuff that you've never seen before and figure it all out. And that's the value of the college degree. And I think
Not to mention, it opens a lot of doors.
And it opens a lot of doors. So, and the evidence is still there that a college degree, a person with a college degree is going to earn 10 to 15 times more than a person without a college degree. So you are better off with a college degree than not. But your point is extremely well taken, and that is, you come out of college and you have to get a job, and you don't have a strategic plan about what you want to do with your career, and you just take whatever job you can get.
Yeah.
And you end up getting stuck in work that you hate. Your life is miserable. So when young people come to me and say, what should I do? I say, follow your passion, get your degrees. If nothing more, get a college degree, and then think about a master's and a doctorate later on if you want to. But get your college degree and then figure out what are you really passionate about, and follow your passion. Don't worry about the money. The money will come. If you follow your passion and you live a life of service, everything else will flow to you effortlessly. And that's really hard for a young person at 21 or 22 years old to get. That's a hard lesson. It took me 50 years to learn that lesson, but that's the lesson. And if you can, the sooner you can learn the lesson and apply it to your life, the sooner you're going to start really living. And if you figure it out in your 20s, great. If you're a slow learner like me and it takes you into your late 40s and 50s to figure that out, that's okay too.
Well, not only that, but then again, because I've noticed that when you said, sorry, about the black belt and about the other, it's impossible to have those achievements if you're not a very, very disciplined person. You cannot do it without discipline. So obviously you had it in you.
Well, that's another reason to go to college, is because if you go to college and you're going through this academic program, you have to be disciplined in order to get through the program. And so it's teaching you discipline. It's teaching you have to show up to class. You have to schedule time to do all your studying. You know, you have to schedule out the times when you're not studying. You just can't flake. You can flake your way through it. But if you're going to get the maximum benefit, you start learning how to discipline yourself to think and to act. And I mean, the reason that I went to law school was not because I wanted to become a lawyer, but it was because I wanted to become a better thinker. And law school is the best place to go to learn how to be a critical thinker, because law school is all about critical thinking and writing. And I advise people today, go to law school, not with the plan to be a lawyer, because with a law degree, you can do so much. You don't have to practice law. In fact, you shouldn't practice law. Practicing law is a hard way to make a living, but you can go into a law degree is far more valuable in a business than an MBA, and you are heads and shoulders above everybody else because you know how to think, and you know how to argue, and you know how to analyze.
Also, how to do some proper research,
and you know how to research.
Yeah, because that's pretty important. Like
right, and so a law degree is extremely valuable, and so that's what I tell people, and that's why I went to law school. It turns out that I just defaulted into becoming a lawyer. I didn't have, because back then, you know, late 70s, if you had a law degree, you became a lawyer. Today, you get a law degree, you can do anything. But those opportunities did not exist 40, 50 years ago.
No, those opportunities didn't exist here in Europe as well, because, you know, and I think I told this before a few times. My grandfather told me to, when you mentioned the trades and stuff, he gave me the example of the guys that are fixing the TV, right? Because everybody has a TV at home. So if you know how to fix it, you always have a job. And honestly, I don't remember ever fixing a TV. Like, if it doesn't work, I'm just throwing it out, buying a new one, and that's it. I don't even know who repairs those anymore.
Well, that's right, because we don't have televisions anymore. We have flat screens.
Yeah.
And we connect to the internet to stream from Netflix or from other streaming services.
Yeah, from whatever.
So, and you're right. If your flat screen goes dead, I mean, it's probably worn out, so it's time to get a new one. So, being a television repairman no longer exists. It's like buggy whips, right? I mean, we don't need buggy whips anymore.
There was this, either an interview or news segment, I can't remember anymore. It was 2 years ago, and President Macron of France met with the protesters, and one of them said, "I'm a gardener and I don't have a job."
Right.
And Macron said, "Right across the street is a bar, and they're looking for bartenders and waiters. So you can't find a job as a gardener, but it's not like we don't have jobs." So, you know, this, and I think this was a good move, because it shows that if you're able to just stop for a moment and look around, you may be able to find an alternative that might be even better than what you had.
That's right. I mean, I've always had the attitude that if somebody took away everything from me, I have other skills that I can always fall back on.
Yeah.
And make a living and start over again. I would not want to do that, but I could if I had to, and I would survive. And I would actually I'd be okay with it. I'd be happy. I'm very happy with what I have right now, but I'm not afraid of having to switch. And this is something I think they need to have some flexibility.
Yeah.
Roll their identity into what they're doing right now, but create their identity in other ways, and just look at, is what I'm doing right now fulfilling to me? Do I enjoy doing this? Is this leading me to a goal that I want to achieve? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, then you need to think about, all right, what do I want? What goals do I want? And how do I achieve those goals? And what do I need to change in my life in order to achieve those goals? And unfortunately, many young people do not set goals for themselves. And
Yeah,
so
no, they don't.
they drift. The way I express it, Denny, is like this. Imagine you're on a sailboat. If you don't have a compass, then you blow wherever the wind goes. The sail, you can't set your sails correctly. You just blow in whatever direction the wind blows. And sometimes you're blown downwind. You're always going to be blown downwind because you don't know how to go up into the wind. But if you have a compass and you set a heading and a course, then you adjust the sails to the wind and you stay on that course. And you can go in you pick that course. It doesn't matter if it's right into the wind. You can still zigzag up into the wind, called tacking. And so the wind no longer controls you. You use the wind as a force to direct you to your goal.
Yeah, I love this metaphor because a long time ago, even my father told me that life is not a river that you can float on. It's the ocean you will drown in if you're not prepared.
That's
so
right.
That was a very good metaphor.
And here's the other thing about this metaphor is that you can always change your heading.
Yeah.
I don't want to go this way anymore. Okay, so I'm going to veer off a little bit more off the wind, and now I'm on a different heading. I got a different goal, but I'm still in control. The fact that you set a goal does not mean that it's locked in concrete. You can always change the goal, but as long as you've got a goal, you are moving in the right direction. Without a goal,
100%. Doug, if I may ask you for another thing, could you please, if you may, of course, please, what advice would you give the audience that are still struggling right now, that are not sure about if this job is for them or not, if this education is for them or not? Could you please share a few words of wisdom, please?
Okay, so let's start with education. Study what you love. I have two major pieces of advice. Number one, study what you love, and take courses from the best professors in your university or college. Doesn't matter what the course is. It could be applied quantum mechanics. If that professor is considered to be one of the top teachers in the college, study under that teacher. Because the best teachers are going to excite you, even in areas of study that you're completely unfamiliar with. The best teachers are going to inspire you and teach you a lot. So always go with the best teachers and study what you love. Once you're out of school and now you're in career, set some goals for yourself, and not just financial goals. Think about what it is that makes you really happy. What really makes you happy? And then think about, where do I want to be in 10 years? So let's say you're 22 years old now, and you're thinking 10 years ahead, where do I want to be when I'm 32 years old? What kind of a lifestyle do I want to be living? Where do I want to be in my career? Do I want to be independent and working for myself as an entrepreneur or a solo professional? Do I want to be working in an organization? And at 32 years old, where do I want to be? I can't remember who said this, but they said the 20s are a time to screw off and just be fun, have fun and learn and experience the world. 30s are the time to build your skills, your professional or business skill. That's the time when you should really be growing professionally. 40, 50, and 60 is when you make all your money.
Yeah.
So focus the 20s on learning and experiencing everything and getting a solid foundation of life. The 30s are when you develop yourself professionally. So for example, if you're going to move into leadership, then you're going to take a lot of leadership courses. You're going to do a lot. You're going to get a leadership coach. You're going to learn how to lead. You're going to learn all about leadership. If you're in logistics, for example, then you're going to spend the 30s learning everything there is to know about logistics. So you spend the 30s developing your professional skills, whatever they are. And that will lead you into your 40s, 50s, and 60s to be a person in high demand, where you can continue to do what you love to do and be working towards a goal. Don't look at retirement as a goal.
Yeah.
Ever. Don't look at money as a goal ever. Look at how many people can I serve and how much can I grow.
That's a pretty solid, pretty good advice. And one more thing before we wrap it up. Can you please send me your contact information on email so that I can put it on the link in the description below?
Yeah. Let me, I'll just put it in the chat right now.
Right on.
My email address is Doug at dougnoll.com. And my website is dougnoll.com.
Right, I'm gonna put it in the description below. Huge thank you for being with me and for sharing all this. Much appreciated. Wish you well. See you around.
You're welcome, Denny.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.